Good morning. I hope everyone's really good and ready for a brand new week as we almost move into the last month of our academic year. So I want to start off by just reiterating some facts about our school and some of our rules. Now, firstly, you must always be in your lessons. I shouldn't really have to say that, but you shouldn't be wandering around corridors or in classrooms other than your own during lesson times. Sixth formers, if you have non-contact time, it's not a free period. You should be in the study room and you should be working. For year 11 and 12, you've now beginning to study the next aspects of your courses. For year 11, that's a taster for AS courses and BTEC. And for year 12, you're moving straight into A2 courses. There's no time to pause or to take a break. And similarly for everyone else, courses continue. The British international system isn't necessarily based around terms that you study, then you stop. It's a spiral curriculum, as Cambridge call it, where everything that you do in one year continues into the next. So if you're in year 8, you're actually beginning some of the studies now which are going to be vital for year 9. And similarly as 7 go into 8 and so on. So there's no time to rest. Now this week you'll be reviewing your examination performance with your teachers. It's worth stressing that the main purpose of exams is so that you can see your strengths and weaknesses. And when you get feedback from your teachers, you're able to learn how you can improve as a learner. The exams are not just to give you a grade and that's it. The point of an exam is so you can make progress. So listen to the feedback you get and really try to reflect upon what sorts of knowledge and understandings you already have and where you need to continue to grow and develop. You'll get the grades sent home to your parents when you get your report cards at the end of the year. But of course you may tell your parents your grades in advance. Something else to stress is the fact that at break time and lunchtime, you must not be in the school building. There is no real exceptions. Occasionally, you may have permission from a teacher for a particular purpose, for example, a school council meeting, but otherwise you should not be in the building. You go to lunch and then you spend your time outside. We have beautiful weather now. No one's going to be cold. So you should be outside. There is no excuse to be inside. If you're found in the building, then you're going to have to answer to me or Mr. Vitali as to why that is so, because we are not going to accept it. Let's hope that we have a wonderful last month. Let's hope that we can have a lot of fun times and things to look back on for this year. It's been a really positive year in most regards. So let's make sure that we end it on a really high note and really kind of enjoy school. One thing I love about working at BISC is that most of you are happy. Most of you seem to enjoy school. So keep that going. Don't push the boundaries. Don't push the rules. Don't go places you're not supposed to go or do things you're not supposed to do. Just keep this very happy environment that we have. Wear correct uniform. Just because we're getting to the end of the year is no excuse to let your standards slip. We must keep high standards until the end. So hopefully we have a wonderful June, which starts tomorrow. And by the end of June, we've only got 2 days left. And then it'll be time for the long vacation. So have a great week. And we'll get on with your PSHE lesson. So today we're going to be focusing on children's rights. Now every child across the world has rights which are enshrined in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of a Child. What I want you to do first is now think about, in pairs, what 10 rights do you think every child in the world has? And write down 10 rights that you think that you have and every other child in the world has. And then you can take time to share with your class and give feedback to your teacher. So, now you've thought what you might consider the most important rights of the child, let's look what the United Nations actually say in the Convention on the Rights of the Child. The version I've shared on the screen is a children's edition, where the language is a bit more easy to understand rather than the technical jargon of United Nations. So firstly, note that the definition of a child according to the UN is anyone under the age of 18 years of age. So that applies to virtually everybody in our student body. And you have a right not to be discriminated against, regardless of your language, your religion, what your opinions are, your gender, whether you're disabled, whether you have a home or not, whether you live with a family, whether your work in school is good or bad. None of these things make any difference. You have a right not to be treated unfairly. And every decision made by adults must be made in your best interest. And every decision should be about thinking, how does this affect children? And that applies within families, within schools, and across governments. And every government in the world has a duty to implement children's rights. Every country, bar a couple, has signed up to this convention. Be interesting if you could look up which couple of countries haven't signed the convention. There are a couple. Morocco has, and Great Britain has. You are entitled to be guided by your parents during your growth, and you're entitled to the right to life, which is a fundamental human right in the adult version as well. Everyone's entitled to a name, and you're entitled to a nationality. Your identity is something which is crucial to you and can never be taken away from you. You have a right to stay with your family in virtually all circumstances. There are exceptions based upon looking after children, but basically you do. And even if you're outside the country where your parents are, you have the right to be reunited with them. Of course, you have the right not to be abducted or removed from your parents. And your opinions must be accepted and respected. Adults should listen very carefully and value and consider the opinions of children. And thus you can express your ideas freely. And you're entitled to the freedom of thought and religion. So anybody, any child in any country is entitled to practice whichever religion they choose. You're entitled to join groups or societies. You're entitled to have your privacy respected. And you're entitled to obtain information through the internet, through the radio, through television. Of course, adults should protect you from harmful information and give you appropriate guidance and assistance, but you are entitled to look up information from multiple channels. Your parents are mainly responsible for raising you, and children who don't have a father and mother should be looked after by other adults or adult, and they would be called the child's guardian. A child is entitled to be free from violence and any form of violence, abuse or neglect from parent, guardian or any other. Children not with their families have a right to be taken care of by others, and children may be adopted if it's in their best interests. Children who are refugees and forced to leave their country should receive necessary help and protection and enjoy exactly the same rights as local children in every country which has signed up. Similarly, any child with a disability is entitled to rights. Every child is entitled to sanitation, clean water, food, and a safe environment. They're entitled to economic assistance to make sure that they don't live in absolute poverty and to have food, shelter, and clothing. Every child is entitled to education, and primary education should be free. And every child should have a right to receive secondary education and even higher education. And all children should be encouraged to receive the highest possible level of education. And even when dealing with student discipline issues, schools should respect the rights of students and never use violence. And that is why corporal punishment is not allowed in virtually every country. When you're being educated, you have a right to develop your personality, your talents and ability. You have a right, regardless if you are a minority, to be respected. A very good one, which I always find, is you absolutely have a right to rest, play, and to take part in cultural and artistic activities. So you have a right to play. You have a right to downtime. You have a right not to do harmful work. When we looked at child labour, we can see that's not always recognised across the world. You have a right to be protected from the harm of drugs and from any form of assault. You have a right not to be trafficked. You have a right not to be exploited. You have a right not to be put to death, tortured, or cruelly treated. And you have a right to be protected in war. You have a right to be reintegrated into society if you've been affected by war and have to move to another country. You have a right to be treated fairly and to have legal aid if you do break the law. There are so many of these rights which you have, and you should be aware of them. Now, in Morocco, in your life, you will be protected by the vast majority of these rights. There'll be very few, I doubt, which you won't be able to access. But if you look around the world, this is not always the case for all people under the age of 18. What I want you to do is reflect upon these, spend some time to put them into order, the order you think that they should be in, based upon your previous work and based upon seeing this convention. If you need to see an easier version to read, then it's easy to look up the Convention of the Rights of the Child on your computer or your tablet. Take a look at them and put them into order. Think about how important they are and whether you think that all children across the world actually have their rights protected. Are there children in certain countries or certain societies where their rights aren't protected? Again, I want you to discuss this in pairs and then to spend some time discussing it as a class and with your teacher. And then your teacher can ask you some other probing questions so you can be reflecting upon these rights.